Hi guys, it's Ree. Welcome back to Chat Explains, a show where I go into my dating app messages and I talk to my former entanglements and I get them to explain finance to me. So, on the last episode, you guys kind of canceled me, and guess what? Like no other influencer, I learned and I listened. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently this time. Today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin, and in my Tinder bio, I said, teach me something about Bitcoin, but oddly, no one really wanted to teach me about Bitcoin, so I thought we'd start off with some like fire pickup lines. The first person said, Bitcoin is unpredictable and risky, just like me, but you know what they say, the higher the risk, the higher the return.
Nice.
That was honestly pretty good. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I did reply, and I would go out with that guy. Totally. I like guys who are a little unpredictable and risky, but only in terms of like, so are you going to buy me a Chanel flat bag or are you going to buy me a Cartier love bracelet? Because we need to talk. Aside from that, someone also said, Bitcoin explained. Buy now and hold on to it for 10 years. Should be guaranteed some profit. That wasn't really a pickup line, so sorry, Chad, but I mean, I guess that means something. Buy now and hold on to it for 10 years. You could also put a ring on me now and hold on to me for 10 years and I will be very happy. But the ring has to be Harry Winston. No exceptions. Aside from like my dating app messages, I also slid into someone's DMs who I talk to every now and then and who I'm very friendly with. He's not in the roster, but he is like a Bitcoin god, and I'm so glad that he just like did this charity work of explaining Bitcoin to me. Cameron Winklevoss, aka @Winklevoss on Instagram, said, Bitcoin is best analogized to digital gold. Okay, so my Cartier love bracelet theory about Bitcoin is right. If you look at the properties of gold and what makes gold gold, Bitcoin has the same or better. For example, gold is scarce. The supply of Bitcoin is fixed. Moreover, Bitcoin is way more portable. You can send it anywhere in the world, just like sending an email. So first of all, thank you, Cameron, for explaining Bitcoin to me. Second of all, everyone just like go sign up for Gemini. Love that. What I know about Bitcoin so far is it's a digital currency. It can't be really traced or tracked to anyone. So if you make a transaction, there's no one to really regulate it. I also know that there's a finite amount. The founder Satoshi decided on an arbitrary number of like 21 million, and people are going crazy trying to find Bitcoin that they had in like 2005 or like whenever Bitcoin started. I don't know. Don't quote me. I'm being explained to. And you know, people are just buying like little amounts of Bitcoin. So aside from like a whole Bitcoin, which I think is sitting around, hey Siri, how much is Bitcoin right now?
Right now, Bitcoin is sitting at 35,000.
Bitcoin is sitting at $35,000 at the time of this video. By the time it's out, I honestly think it'll be at 40. Anyway, so that's how much one whole Bitcoin is, but you can also buy like bits and pieces of Bitcoin. And I think the smallest amount of Bitcoin you can buy is called a sat, and it's named that because of Satoshi. So this is all I know about Bitcoin so far. This is all I kind of knew going in, and I love to tell people that Bitcoin is like a Cartier love bracelet, like I said earlier, because there's a certain amount, there's only so much gold in the world, and there's only so much Cartier in the world. So while there are other bracelets like your Amex Click, your Tiffany wire bracelet, yes, I'm dropping hints to my entanglements, the Cartier love bracelet is probably the most valuable out of the ones I mentioned, and it's the most finite. Meaning there's like a finite amount, not everyone can get one, and if you get one, you're like cool as fuck. Because when you go to TSA at the airport to go to Miami or Tulum, you have to say, I can't take it off. It doesn't come off. It's like screwed onto my hand. Speaking of my hand and my wrist in Cartier, my wrist is looking quite bare. This is a message to all the guys I'm entangled with who are watching. My wrist is looking bare. Valentine's Day is approaching. Please explain Bitcoin to me. Please buy me approximately like 1 Bitcoin and a Cartier love bracelet and a Tiffany wire bracelet. Thank you. So aside from antagonizing guys on Tinder and talking to Cameron, I also decided to hit up this guy that I went out with at one point because I follow him on Twitter and he keeps tweeting about like how much Bitcoin he's holding, what's up with it, and like how much he has, and like I just wanted him to explain it to me. He's one of those people where we went out, he mansplained bonds to me and I didn't listen, but now I need his finance expertise. I decided to shoot him a message and I said, Hey, I know we haven't talked since the Carbone disaster, but I've seen your tweets about how much Bitcoin you're holding. Actually, I think the term is hodling. Like hodl is like what Bitcoin people say when you're like holding on to Bitcoin. I don't know why. Maybe we can find that out. But anyway, I asked him to explain it to me, and I followed up with, it's a digital currency, right? Because I know some stuff about Bitcoin. Granted, I didn't know everything going into this, and I admit to that, but not gonna act like a complete airhead. Come on. He very, very, very graciously decided to text me back. Didn't even say hello though, so like, Brad, maybe you need to step it up a little. And he said, Bitcoin is basically the new black card. You hold it, flex it occasionally, and only 100 other people have them. Cash is for losers or people who love inflation. The only thing that I love inflating is my bank account, but the things I don't love inflating is my dress size at Saks, because the amount of times I have had an emotional breakdown in a fitting room is probably unhealthy, and I should probably process it in therapy, but instead I'll just buy more clothes. And I responded with, but you can't put a stack of Bitcoin in my mouth. Which is true, you can't. I mean, unless you just put like your phone in your mouth, and then why would you do that? And he said, your mouth deserves better than cash, which is a fact. I would like gold, but since Bitcoin is digital gold, I think there's a halfway here between cash and Bitcoin, and I think the answer is gold. And I replied with, that's hot. So what exactly is blockchain, by the way, and why do I hear about it so much? And he said, if Bitcoin is the animal, blockchain is the jungle. It's the system that basically replaces Quicken. Okay, so if Bitcoin is like Neiman Marcus last call, blockchain is like actual Neiman Marcus, I would assume. And I said, what's Quicken? Because like, who knows what Quicken is? And he said, Quicken is basically something that my dad uses because he's too cheap to hire an accountant to do his taxes. All transactions are self-verified and regulated, so there's no room for fraud or bullshit unlike in actual banks. Okay, so like, you know how you have that one friend who like gets drunk and like buys stuff and calls their bank, and they're like, oh no, I never took that Uber, like I've never been to San Francisco, or I think that's Lyft, because Lyft is based out of there. There's no room for that in Bitcoin because you can't really trace or regulate Bitcoin, so there's zero room for fraud. The point is that blockchain is something even banks are now looking into to help manage trade confirmations and transactions. Like, you don't actually ever need to use the black card to feel good about having one because everyone values it. That's what Bitcoin is to me. I don't care if it becomes a currency because we know that big rich institutions see it as an easy and efficient way to store value and wealth versus tons of gold bars. Okay, this is true. But my question about Bitcoin, before I get into his further explanation, and maybe you guys can answer it in the comment section, is what are we ever going to do if there's like an actual Y2K and we have little to no computers? Like, what's gonna happen then? I would love to know. We need answers. And I said, why is Bitcoin finite? And why haven't the banks just bought all of it yet? And he replied with, 0% interest rates aren't good for banks, and there are corporations and institutions that are buying every day. This will continue, and in a year or two, I wouldn't be surprised if governments start buying. The biggest risk for Bitcoin to be a real alternative to gold is probably regulation. My feelings about this is, I think I heard something about Cathie Wood like buying Bitcoin with ARK, but I'm not fully sure. And if I were like DJ D Sol, you know, like David Solomon over at Goldman Sachs, who caused a whole controversy summer of 2020 because he DJ'd a concert in the Hamptons. Like, people were in cars, but there was the Chainsmokers. Anyway, if I were DJ D Sol, or actually one of my favorite people, Rich Handler, hey Rich, if you're watching, I would totally just buy like 21 million Bitcoin because I'd be like, this is the future. But, you know, I think Jamie Dimon was bearish on it for a while, but to my knowledge, one of the banks set their price targets like super high, so maybe Wall Street is warming up to Bitcoin. My next question to this poor guy who took 5 to 10 minutes out of his busy job to explain to me was, will you pay for our next date in Bitcoin? And I'm honestly offended because he said, hell no, holding on for dear life. So in a year, our anniversary will be on Mars in my private rocket. We'll actually just use a black card to pay for dinner. So personally, I love it when guys pay with black cards on dates. Like, I think it's sexy, but I also feel like if a guy like ever wanted to waste like a Bitcoin on me, or like parts of his Bitcoin, like sats, or just like, you know, 0.0000007% of a Bitcoin, however much that's gonna be in like a year on a date, like, I'd be flattered. Like, oh, you're giving away like your currency for me. Like, that's cute. But I don't know, I feel like in 2 to 3 years, if guy doesn't want to pay in Bitcoin, I'm going to be like, it's quiet for homeboy.